Hey everyone, I'm Maria.
And I'm Lisa. And today we're going to be talking about Christianity in the social media world.
We have 4 main points we want to talk about, and the first point is, should Christians use social media?
We believe that Christians actually should use social media because it is one of the best ways to interact with people of our generation. So because of that, it's actually one of the best opportunities to share about God and reflect Him. And there's actually a situation in the Bible that's very similar to this. In Acts 17, verses 16 through 26, Paul goes to Athens. He goes to a meeting in Areopagus where the Athenians did nothing but talk about the latest ideas. So in verse 19 it says, "Then they took him and brought him to a meeting where they said to him, 'May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we would like to know what they mean.'" So Paul is basically like, okay, let me use this opportunity to present the Athenians with my latest idea, which is Christ. He says, "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples but by human hands. And he is not served by human hands as if he is anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else." So Paul basically stood up in front of a bunch of strangers that were just interested in the latest trends and what everyone was talking about, and he used that to share the gospel.
Something else, while we were preparing this, we were reading an article, and it wasn't necessarily a Christian article, but we read a quote that really stood out to us. And the quote says, "I think that social media is just like a screwdriver. A screwdriver, you can build beautiful things with wonderful mechanical things, but you could also stab somebody in the face with it. It's just a tool, and social media, it's a tool that can be used for enormous good." So there's 2 ways. Social media can be really bad, and it also can be really good. You can spread your faith, you can talk to others, you can bring some people up, but it can also lead to terrible things if you don't avoid what you have to avoid. If you don't use it the right way, it can lead to bad things, and that is probably why some people think it's bad, but we as Christians have to change that and use it for good.
So our next question, idea, topic is, how should we use social media, and what should our presence online say about us? So Matthew 5:16 says, "In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." By this, I think we can see that social media is a great place to spread God's love at all times. And even when we're not necessarily talking about Him, we can bring positivity in a negative environment, and we can be peacemakers in a hateful world. Matthew 5:9 specifically says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God." In Romans 14:19 says, "Let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and mutual edification." So what our job really is to bring a social media world, like Maria said, full of hate and negativity, and be the ones to be positive and be the ones to bring peace. So yeah, that's really what I have on that.
In Ephesians 4:29, it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." So we have to make sure everything we're saying or we're putting out there in social media is to build people up, to benefit others, and not just bring them down. If you're seeing a hateful comment, just be the person who is "Oh no, it's not like this," write a positive comment where it's just full of hateful or comments or negativity. You can make the difference.
Exactly. Another thing we can do is invite our Instagram followers, I guess you would say, or your friends on social media to teaching opportunities. An example is Wednesday nights at CS Students. which doing that is a really great way to turn others to Jesus without being too forceful. Because you could do something simple like post on your Snapchat story or your Instagram story like, hey, if you're not doing anything, come to Wednesday night. And whoever wants to can. And it also shows, like if they come, it shows that we can have fun while we worship Jesus. In Matthew 28:19 it says, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, as you all know, one of our greatest callings is to go and make disciples, go and tell others about Jesus, and one way we can do that is by inviting them to opportunities where they can learn more about that.
Yes. And one thing, since our presence in social media should reflect our life as Christians, something we can do before posting or writing a comment is we can ask ourselves every time before we're posting or commenting something, would God be proud of me if I post this? Would God agree with me with posting this? Just imagine, like, if God was standing right in front of you, and while you were writing the comment, while you were posting what you were going to post, would he be happy with you? Would he approve of what you're posting? So just be mindful of that and always think about that. In 1 Corinthians 10:31, it says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. So everything you do has to be for the glory of God. And that includes social media. So everything you post, comment, like, everything should be for the glory of God.
Exactly. Okay. Our next topic is, we kind of did this topic because as we were saying, like, Christians should use social media. Well, like my parents can't let me use social media, and that's very understandable because there's bad things on social media, like Maria said before. So this kind of topic is like, what should we avoid on social media when we have it? Because we might use it to spread God's love, but we can't deny the fact that there's bad people out there, that there's things that lead you into sin, and so that's basically what the next topic is about.
Yes, so there are a lot of things we should avoid out there, and not even just on social media, like in the world, but in social media there's a lot of temptation, there's a lot of bad things that could go. So in 2 John 12, it says, I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be complete. So something you should really avoid is writing like hateful comments, like I already said. But let's say you have an argument with someone. Some people tend to just post it on social media and say about, oh, this happened today with this person. And that just creates two sides. Creates people, one of them, it's going to get a lot of hate. One of them's going to get all the supporters, be like, so there's a lot of like negativity and bad like vibes that are going to create. So you should always avoid to put your conflicts and arguments with other people out there. Instead, you should try to talk to that person face to face. Like if you have a disagreement with someone, just call them, talk to them, be like, how can we fix this? Instead of putting it out there and showing everyone what's going on. And that's one thing doesn't reflect your Christian life, because it's like, oh, like this person's always posting about like arguments with other people. So you should always avoid and try to talk to that person before posting it on social media.
Another thing that we should avoid is being too forceful. I know a lot of people hate it when people push their religion on others, especially Christians can be very known to do that, especially on social media when it's really easy to do so. So when we're forceful, people refuse to listen, and then they think we're hypocrites, and we want to be the type of people that are preaching really just about God wanting a relationship with them. 2 Timothy 2:24 says, and the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful. So we have to be patient, we have to be gentle, and not forceful when we talk. And then Proverbs 10:9 says, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. And then 1 Corinthians 10:23 says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. all things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. So along with not being too forceful, we also want to avoid saying too much when we talk about God, because it can sometimes be really overwhelming, and then that also makes people refuse to listen, especially people that don't really hear about God. So we want to be really careful with our words, even if what we think we're saying is really good, because we can get really excited. I know from experience. And so we want to avoid being too forceful and being like talking too much, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Another thing we should avoid, and it's going on in social media a lot these days, and it's cancel culture. So you probably know what that means, but if you don't, it's basically whenever like a famous person or someone like important, like, I don't know, does something that people don't agree with or makes a mistake, basically, and everyone's just like, let's cancel that person. Like, that person's just like out. Like, we don't want it anymore. So that's actually a really bad culture that we have made, and I always say, God doesn't cancel people. If He did, like, we will all be canceled. So there's no reason to cancel anyone, and actually Psalms 75:6-7 says, "For no one on earth, from east or west, or even from wilderness, should raise a defiant fist. It is God alone who judges. He decides who will rise and who will fall." So it's God's job to judge people. Like, we are no ones to judge anyone. So if someone makes a mistake, like, we are the ones who's like should like listen, be like, oh well, this is how you can fix it, but we should never judge that person or cancel them in this case. We should always, that's about like just God can do that, and we are not ones to judge.
Yep. Another thing we want to avoid is being jealous of others on social media. This is probably the hardest one because we all do it. It's just something we all have in our blood. And it just happens. When we catch ourselves becoming jealous of others, what I advise is, one, remember that social media only shows the good parts of people's life. Unless you're like on someone's like spam account. But like that's all it's basically going to show. And then you want to stop and turn to God and begin thanking Him for the blessings in your life. I remember there was a time when I was on a mission trip, and we were waiting for like our buses to come, and we were outside, and it was so hot. We were so miserable. It was so hot. And Brittany told us to stop complaining, and we each went in a circle, and we each said something we're thankful for, and we kept going until the bus came. And by the time the bus came, we were not complaining. We were actually very happy. We were bonding. And so I guess what I say from that is that just giving thanks, even when you don't want to, does so much. And it makes you so much happier, even if it doesn't seem that way. And then Romans 12:15 says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn." So I want to focus more on the rejoice with those who rejoice, as in like if someone is at the beach and you know what, it sucks, you want to be at the beach, but like rejoice with them, like, hey, like it's great that you get to be at the beach, like I hope you have fun. And that's also another way that we can spread God's love and avoid being jealous of others.
Yeah, that's right. So our fourth point. Sorry. Our fourth point is, how can we prevent social media from becoming more of a priority than God? So you want to start with that?
Yes. Okay. So something you can do, which I know seems kind of like, oh, like why are you being a mom? But it works, is setting limits for yourself on social media. I personally find that I spend more time, like when I spend more time on social media than I usually do, it consumes my thoughts. I usually become more negative sometimes, or I'm really just thinking about Instagram or TikTok like literally 24/7. So while it's good to have social media to connect and interact, like we said, it can become really draining and consuming. So I guess finding a balance is a really good thing to do, and just setting limits for yourself.
Yep. Another great option is to spend the same amount of time you spend on social media with God. Because if you do that with time, you're going to spend more time with God than social media. But if you're seeing yourself like, oh my gosh, I'm spending 9 hours on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and then I'm spending 30 minutes with God, like, try spending the same amount of time first. And then your time with God should be always more than your time on social media. But I get that it's hard. Like, sometimes time just goes really fast. You don't even realize that you just spent 3 hours scrolling through TikTok. Like, it has happened to me. But it's a great starting point. Like, just think about, okay, if you want to that your relationship with God, like, gets stronger, just try it with small things. Like, try spending more time reading the Bible. Try spending more time praying. Like, and try spending more time doing fun things to God. Like, it doesn't actually have to be like, oh, well, now I have to read the Bible for 9 hours because I spent 9 hours in TikTok. Of course not, because I would not want to read the Bible for 9 hours. Like, I get it. But just try to find fun things to do that glory God. Like, hang out with your friends and do something fun. Maybe you can worship together. There's a lot of ways you can do things for God, like in God's time. That doesn't necessarily have to be reading the Bible or praying for 9 hours. Like, just try finding those times where you can really connect with God and just grow spiritually.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, I feel like when you take the time to spend time with God, you start to enjoy it naturally, like more and more, if you do it consistently. I think we did this before I heard Sunday service, but I was listening to Spanish service, and Pastor Jaime was talking about how if we spend 1% of our day every day with God, it eventually builds up, and you just naturally start to enjoy it more. God naturally just becomes a part of your life, and social media won't be the most, just like I said, it naturally, social media doesn't become the most important thing in your life, and you kind of start to have this desire to share, like, the time you've had with God with the people on social media, so it kind of just works both ways. Yeah.
Yes, and going back to, like, setting limits for yourself, also taking a break from social media, not only limits. Sometimes it's really healthy to just step out of social media, maybe take a break for a week. If for a week it's too much, just take a break for like a day too. Like, it really helps with you, like, it helps yourself, because you're always thinking about social media, oh, what this person like posted. Like, so just taking a break from it can help you like change your mindset a lot. Your mind suddenly like becomes more focused on Jesus rather on like what people are doing.
So now we kind of like finished like the main topics we wanted to go through, and so we have some questions, and since this is online, we can't really hear y'all's responses. So y'all could answer like to yourselves, and we will kind of briefly give our answers too, because we're just like you guys and we have our problems too.
Yeah, try to think your answer before you hear ours. So you can just like answer to yourself there.
The first one is, what are some reasons you personally struggle to center your social media towards God?
Well, me personally, I struggle with caring too much about what people think about me. Like, I think that if I post a Bible verse every single day, people are going to think I'm religious. If I post this, people are going to think I'm annoying. So that's something I definitely need to work on. But sometimes I really focus too much, so I'm like, oh no, I'm not posting this because I posted it yesterday, and they're going to think I'm too religious. So yeah, that's one thing.
For me, it's kind of similar, but for me, it's more of like, I'm scared of being too forceful. I'm scared of being like, oh, like this girl's pushing her religion down my throat. Like, I would say that I'm very strong in my beliefs, but I also hate when people are too forceful in their opinions, and so I don't want to be that person. It's also, like Maria said, something I need to work on. We all have our faults. So, and kind of like the opposite, what are some ways you have personally tried to share your faith on social media, like ways that you like sharing your faith. In what way can we glorify God through our social media?
So, kind of like going off of what I struggle with, some things that have helped me like get better at like fixing that is thinking that even if other people don't like what I post, even if other people do think I'm religious for posting Bible verses in my story, I do it to glorify God. I post Bible verses because maybe I really liked what God told me that day, and I just wanted to share it. And it could also help someone. Maybe someone reads it and is like, oh, I really needed to hear this today. And yes, there are going to be some people that are going to think maybe I'm annoying or I'm too much or something. But I do it to God, and God is going to compensate me later, so.
Period. Okay, for me, I like to make small posts, like in public, like I don't want to say daily, but like every other day, I guess, I don't know, on like my Instagram story. So like if people want to see it, they can click on it, or if people don't want to see it, they can just click off. And it kind of helps me with like my not being too forceful. Like for example, I'll like post like what Christian song I'm listening to, if it really stood out to me, or I'll like retweet or repost like someone else's post. Like if they make a post of like their biblical advice or something, I'll like retweet it or repost it and be like, hey, like read this, watch this, it's like really good. Like you can post this Bible study on your Instagram story if you want to get you started. And so that's what I really like to do because it gives people good resources.
Yeah. All right, another question is, how do you think we can be unique? Like mark a difference in social media that doesn't always involve talking about God. Directly about God.
Mm-hmm. When I see people being negative, I kind of like to see like the situation glass half full, and turn them back into positivity and like being like, hey, like see it like there's a possibility you could see it this way, you know. And if they don't listen, I guess like I tell myself like it's okay. They probably won't, but like in the future, I know it's gonna come back in their mind. So I really like to like kind of bring peace when there's like stressful times or angry times, and so yeah.
Yes, like for me, if I see people are like commenting really hateful stuff on other people, really marking the difference is by being the only person that comments something positive. So let's say I see like, comment sections are sometimes can be really hateful on someone. So they're like, oh, this, and this. So I can just mark the difference by just being like, you're so pretty, or have a good day, like, you did good, you're a great dancer. I don't know, something like that. I don't necessarily have to be like, God bless you, or something like that. I can talk about that person and compliment that person. Maybe, like, that could really mark a difference. If that person's receiving a lot of hate, one comment could really make their day. So just be different.
The last question is, how has social media led you into sin, and what can you do to fix that?
So we often can be like tempted to desire other people's lives that don't reflect God. So like if you see your friends doing something that isn't very good, but looks fun to like the human eye, you can tend to be like, oh, I want that. Like I'm sitting right here in my bed, I'm bored. Like I really want to do that. Like, and then to fix it, I feel like I can limit my time on social media. Like if I'm seeing that I'm doing that a lot, I can be like, okay, like I'm not gonna look at that. Like I know my life is fun. I know there's a lot of ways to have fun with Jesus. So I'm just not gonna look at that. And then like Lisa said earlier, like just stop and thinking about everything that God has given to me, everything that I can be thankful for my life, can really like help me get into like a positive mindset and everything.
Mm-hmm. For me, because it's so normal for social media to use bad words, it can really just come to me naturally if I'm on it for so long. It just becomes so easily just to like type a bad word like on the internet, and then there's literally just nothing, like no one's gonna tell you anything because everyone does it, you know. So to fix it, I can be a little more conscious of my words and remember that I'm not like everyone else in this world, that I don't have to use the language that everyone else uses. And I can also, like we said earlier, I can limit my time on social media so that it doesn't influence my language that much. Yeah, that's basically all we have for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope you reached the end.
Hope you have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Jesus loves you.